So today I revealed that I had taken a trip to Ames, Iowa, the site of Iowa State University, the alma mater of Brock Purdy. The 3,000 word article is up on the screen. It's available on The Athletic. If you're watching on Twitter or X, you can find the link on my feed. If you're watching on YouTube, then you can find the link in the description. If you are listening on the podcast, then you can go to my Twitter and find the link. But this is definitely worth reading if you're a 49ers fan or an NFL fan. And in this video, I'm going to be happy to take you on for the journey to Ames. So why don't we watch and I'll narrate. Tri-Stadium here at Iowa State. This is where Brock Purdy, now the 49ers quarterback, starred back in college. Over 4 record-breaking seasons, Brock Purdy gave Iowa State something they'd never had before. Stability at the quarterback position, but also the sense that they were never truly out of any game. When Brock Purdy was under center, the Cyclones believed they always had a chance. That is Iowa State's athletics facility. Brock Purdy is featured on the walls there, as you would expect. That is Jack Trice Stadium. That's where Brock Purdy played his 4 years of college football. They've got the NFL wall, and you could see Purdy in his 49ers uniform. Obviously, Brock Purdy is on the wall with all the NFL players as well. Mr. Relevant, it says under that picture. Breece Hall's also on there. He plays for the Jets. He was Brock Purdy's running back at Iowa State. This is their indoor practice facility. Back to Jack Trice Stadium. And then this is a bar and grill on the northern side of town. It's called Wallabies. They got Purdy's 15 jersey. You'll see the Warriors jersey. That's Harrison Barnes' jersey. Harrison Barnes actually grew up in Ames, Iowa, the town of Iowa State, and went to high school there before he went to North Carolina and obviously to the Warriors and beyond. The cherry on top here is that there's a Purdy and a Montana jersey side by side in this bar at Iowa State. A look at the middle of campus again. It was a beautiful day. I actually went right after Memorial Day. And here you see a little pond where some students like to fish. Brock Purdy liked to fish during his time in ponds in and around Ames. I'm not sure if he fished in exactly that pond, but it was worth taking a video of. So this is the video about Brock Purdy and the mind-blowing parallels between his time at Iowa State and his time with the 49ers. Take a look at this. At Iowa State, Brock Purdy was an unheralded recruit. He started his first season as the third-string quarterback. He wowed on the scout team. He took over the first year following an injury to the veteran starter. He lit up his first game and season, and he became a quarterback fixture. With the 49ers, look how similar this is. I essentially only had to change one line, the first one. He was the last pick of the draft. It's the same thing as unheralded recruit. It's the NFL version of unheralded recruit. Started his first season as the fourth string quarterback. That was the start of training camp. Then he became the third stringer after he beat out Nate Sudfeld in camp. Wowed on the scout team. That definitely happened in San Francisco. Took over his first year following an injury to the veteran starter, lit up his first game and season, and became a quarterback fixture. That is the origin story that I wrote about here. So it is in the description. It is up on the Twitter. We're going to sit here today and we're going to break down some tape from college that Iowa State has given us permission to use. One of those clips is included in the article, so you can go ahead and make sure that you see the full context there. But I sat down with Iowa State's offensive coordinator, Taylor Mauser, who was the recruiting coordinator, the recruiting chief at the time of Brock Purdy's recruitment. So he's since been promoted to offensive coordinator under Matt Campbell for the Cyclone staff. And he was digging through his computer to find this play right here that began it all for Brock Purdy at Iowa State. This is going to replay a few times, but this is when Brock Purdy was on the scout team, training camp 2018, 18-year-old true freshman. jukes his way to the touchdown. You're going to see the defensive end here, and I'm going to pause this. The defensive end is Jaquan Bailey, who would get a cup of coffee on an NFL roster, but he was an all Big 12 player that season. The running back is on the right side. I'm not sure if that's David Montgomery or who was. No, probably not, because it was the third team offense. So David Montgomery was the first team running back. The running back is on the right side. If the defensive end does not bite inside, then Purdy is supposed to pitch inside. Instead, Purdy faked the pitch and juked Jaquan Bailey out of his pants. Look at all that separation created that quickly. You could see it from the top there. Whoop. 5 yards of separation. The short area quickness of Brock Purdy was on display. Based on what I understand, the jaws of everybody on the field dropped at this point, because this is an 18-year-old true freshman, unheralded recruit who shows up, and it's an all-conference defensive end who he just is able to deke his way by. It's the combination of the fake pitch inside and the burst that Brock Purdy has had ever since high school. We've seen the elite 10-yard burst at the NFL level. They saw it right away at the college level. Now, the reason that I show you this is because about a month later, maybe a little bit more, Brock Purdy, because of injuries in front of him, takes over the starting quarterback job. And he's at Oklahoma State. Not an easy place for an 18-year-old true freshman to start. And Brock Purdy's already running into the end zone. Wait till you see this. I think it's going to be a little bit more clear from the end zone angle, but he actually fakes a pass backwards before he sprints into the end zone. So here's Purdy out of the shotgun, read option, fakes the pass backwards, and causes two defenders to trip over themselves. High steps it a little bit into the end zone as well. You'll see it from this angle. This is what we call moxie. For a 18-year-old true freshman, this is prodigious kind of stuff. Fakes the handoff, fakes the pass right there, and splits two defenders. There's the high step for Brock Purdy into the end zone. I love that end zone angle. We can see it one more time. We could even listen to the offensive coordinator, Taylor Mauser. I'm going to play it one more time with sound as we were watching this tape, but first I want to show you this. There's the fake. And he splits two defenders with the fake. I mean, this is insane stuff for an 18-year-old. Let's watch this one more time with sound.
You see how he like just pump fakes? This isn't even an option. Like, this guy's not even in the, like, running a bubble, the slot. But he pumps him, freezes him, and then, like, high steps in the end zone. Like, just first game ever playing. Like, just, oh, sorry.
So you saw this on the field immediately, what you had seen in practice, which was really
like
that.
This is like such a old guy vet move that you don't see people make. You know what I mean?
And supposedly the pump fake is one of his signature things.
He would just kill people on the pump fake, and like that's just like we don't like coach the pump fake. It's not like a.
That was Brock Purdy. That was his first game. He 5 touchdowns in his first extended action as a freshman against Oklahoma State. Turned around the season. And that's why I bring up the parallels that we did with this. It was the same story. The 49ers story was the same story as the one at Iowa State. You just do a little bit of digging and you see the crazy parallels between then and now for Brock Purdy. That's why I call it the mind-blowing parallels. Anyway, the article is up. I want everybody to check it out. Obviously, I hope I gave you a little bit of a background story on Iowa State. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have about the article. I'm going to go into the comments section and look at the questions in a little bit. But what really, really stood out to me was the culture of this program. Unassuming kind of place. I flew into Des Moines, which is the capital of Iowa. I drove about 30 minutes north to Ames. As you saw, the facility is sleek, but it's not gaudy. It's hard to find a shrine to Brock Purdy, who was the greatest starter in school history anywhere in this town. There's about 70,000 people in the town. Yeah, we saw the jersey up on the wall next to the Joe Montana jersey. There's a place that has all the famous athletes, or most of them, has their jerseys. It's a bar and grill. It's called Wallabies. So they had good nachos. Tried them while I was there. But it's not like a football factory, let's go worship all the players kind of place. Brock Purdy was very unheralded coming out of high school in Arizona, but he ended up being offered a scholarship by Alabama and by Texas A&M. So why did he pick Iowa State over Alabama and Texas A&M? I think it was because of the homey vibe. I think that, you go to Alabama or you go to Texas A&M, you've got the football factory vibe. It doesn't really mesh with Brock Purdy as a person. And the 49ers have had this stabilizing presence, and Iowa State enjoyed this stabilizing presence because of the person that Brock Purdy is. And this is a guy that told George Kittle, with maybe there was an expletive, I'm not sure, but he told George Kittle to shut up in the huddle when he first stepped into it as a 22-year-old in the 2022 season. So George Kittle's goofing off. Brock Purdy takes command. He was a stabilizing presence in a season that could have gone to upheaval for the 49ers in 2022. Remember that Trey Lance was the original quarterback for the 49ers in that season. And then Jimmy Garoppolo took over. And Garoppolo was playing well, but then he broke his foot. So everybody thought that the season was circling down the drain before Brock Purdy just stabilized everything from his very first chance against the Miami Dolphins. And then he faced Tom Brady, of all people, in his first career start the next week. He got rocked on the very first play. He wasn't able to identify a nickelback blitz on the first play. Remember, he just got destroyed on that play, but he still turned around to deliver, 4 touchdown passes against Tampa Bay. Became the only quarterback to beat Tom Brady in his first career start. Nobody's ever going to have a chance to do what Brock Purdy did because Brady retired shortly thereafter. So the stabilizing presence, I think this article really delves into it, and that's why I want you to go read it, because I think you have to see the quotes for what they are. Matt Campbell, Iowa State's head coach, it was really cool. I sat down in his office and he said, you know what? You're sitting on the same chair. It's like a couch chair that Brock Purdy was sitting on when I called him into the office and said, we're going to give you some snaps this week against Oklahoma State. They were only planning to give him one series, the second series of the game, and they were going to see where it was going to go past that. But after that, they said, okay, well, we got to keep Brock Purdy in this game. So that all happened in Ames. Well, obviously, the Oklahoma State game was in Stillwater, but the decision-making process was in Ames. This right here was in Ames. That was training camp. That's when I think Iowa State realized they've got a player on their hands. And, I have a picture of the quarterback before Brock Purdy, the starter for the season before, and his name was Kyle Kempt. This is in the article. Check this out. Kyle Kempt was like the Jimmy Garoppolo of the situation for the Iowa State Cyclones. He won some big games for Iowa State, 17 in the middle. Purdy's 15 on the left. Kempt won some really big games for the Cyclones, including a win over Baker Mayfield and Oklahoma the season prior in 2017. And then he ceded to Brock Purdy. He hurt his knee, and they started a guy in between both of them. His name was Zeb Noland. Purdy replaced Noland, but then Kyle Kempt was going to be healthy later in that season. And he told the coaching staff, it's okay. Ride with Brock Purdy. Keep it going. It was a really selfless move from a QB in his 6th year. That was it for Kyle Kempt. He's now on Iowa State staff. So there's just a really cool story there of teamwork and selflessness that led to Brock Purdy earning that starting job at Iowa State that I think is really worth reading. So I think that was one of the cool photos in there. And I highly recommend that everybody check it out. We'll put the article back up on the screen. There you go. Before Brock Purdy was an NFL star, he transcended Iowa State's football program. Fun stuff. I'm probably going to turn to the comment section to see some of the questions about this. It obviously took a lot of research. It took some travel. It was cool. I was there, like I said, right after Memorial Day. So it was before the second or third OTA session for the 49ers. Maybe it was the third OTA session already. Flew This is a story. My flight was delayed leaving Des Moines, Iowa, so I wasn't going to make my connecting flight, I believe, in Denver. So I wasn't going to make OTAs, and I really wanted to make 49ers OTAs that day. So instead of sleeping after I reported this story, I drove in the middle of the night from Ames, Iowa to Minneapolis, Minnesota, which is about, I think it was a 4-hour drive, maybe a 3-hour drive in the middle of the night. It was really flat. That's all I remember. To catch a 6:30 or 7 a.m. flight out of Minneapolis direct to San Francisco so I could make 49ers practice that next day, because I wasn't going to make the layover flight out of Ames. There's thunderstorms or something going on late May, early June. And on that drive, I got to make the drive that the Iowa State people who want to go see Brock Purdy play are going to make in week 2 this year when the 49ers play the Minnesota Vikings in Minneapolis. Not a terrible drive unless you're doing it at 2 a.m. like I was. I think I did it at 2 or 3 a.m. and I got to the Minneapolis airport around 6, and I think I flew at 7 or 7:30. And I made it in time back to the Bay Area to see practice. So I saw Iowa State's facility one day and then the 49ers facility the next. Then obviously did a whole lot more research after that, and then we come out with the article today. So hopefully everybody does get a chance to see it. I think we covered some new ground with Brock Purdy, which is not easy to do given how thoroughly he has been covered over the course of his time from Mr. Irrelevant to the starting quarterback of the San Francisco 49ers and an MVP finalist now for the 49ers. He's got a chance to win that award this year. He's got a chance to lead the 49ers to a Super Bowl. He ultimately led Iowa State in his 3rd season there. So this is coming up on the 3rd season with the 49ers. They broke through and they won the Fiesta Bowl. And they won the Fiesta Bowl back in Arizona. Remember, he's from Perry High School in the Phoenix area. So the Fiesta Bowl is played at the Arizona Cardinal Stadium. It's where he was honored as the Gatorade State Player of the Year for the state of Arizona. Took a picture with Patrick Peterson. Patrick Peterson started talking some trash to Brock Purdy this past year, but I think Purdy won that battle against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Anyway, back at that stadium, that's where the Fiesta Bowl was in the 2020 season. Purdy was the QB. Taylor Mouser, who's also from Arizona, the guy that was helping break down that film there of Brock Purdy. He recruited him out of Arizona. It was kind of a full circle moment for them. If we're talking about parallels, the 49ers want a similar parallel here. They want the full circle moment to come in year 3. They want Purdy to take them to that Super Bowl. It's not going to be in Arizona. It's going to be in New Orleans this year. But I think there's a definite sense from San Francisco that this is a year where they want to kick down that door. Because this is the iteration of the 49ers that has been to so many big games, won so many big games, but also lost some really huge ones over the past few years. That core of star players is mostly still with the 49ers. Purdy has taken the torch as their quarterback. He's taken the offense to another level, and they're hoping to reach the level of ultimate glory to win that Super Bowl, which is why I think that going through this origin story and this backstory right now as the 2024 campaign begins is so cool and so gratifying to do. Yes, I just left my rental car in Minneapolis. I've got people asking me what I did with a rental car. You could change your drop-off location on a rental car. You don't have to drop it off at the same spot. It was initially supposed to be, and this shout out to Avis. I think it was Avis Rental Cars that hooked this up. But with their app, I said, okay, I'm not dropping off in Des Moines anymore. I'm going to drop off in Minneapolis, and it was like the same cost. I think it was a little bit more gas, but yeah, I took it up the road and did that. Anyway, everybody, you can post your questions. I am now looking into the comment section. I will answer the good ones here. Mind-blowing parallels. Purdy's story in Iowa State, and then Purdy's story with the 49ers. Those of you just joining, the link is on my Twitter or it's on the description of the YouTube. If you're listening on the podcast, you can go to my Twitter at Lombardi himself. Everybody subscribe to The Athletic. Check out the story. Hopefully we've packaged this in a way that gives you some new insight into Brock Purdy. Did I go to Hickory Park while I was in Ames? No, unfortunately, I did not. That's a question from Brandon. Jim Everett asks, David, do you like eating at Gozen in Visalia? Gozen is right near where I grew up. It's a cool little sushi spot. Teppanyaki sushi, really good spot. Yes, I enjoy eating at Gozen in Visalia. Mig C asks, hi, David, what can the 49ers do to help Brock have time in the pocket? Well, Trent Williams can come back. They need to figure out a way to make sure that happens. That's really important. He's the best left tackle in the game. They're hoping that the other 4 offensive line positions improve. I think that's really, really important for the 49ers. They want to make sure that they're getting better center play than they did in 2023. They want to make sure that Aaron Banks in a contract year is better than he was in 2023. Right guard, I would even say that Dominic Pooney might be the favorite to start there. That's going to be an entirely new player if that does happen at right guard. So they can get better pass protection there. And then, I think it is plausible to expect Colton McKivitz to be better in 2024 than 23 because he was a first-year starter at right tackle last season. That's no longer going to be the case this season. What impact will the schedule have on the team? Well, the 49ers never have an easy travel schedule just by virtue of the fact that they're a West Coast team. So they're playing obviously in the Pacific time zone, as far west as you can be. Them, Seattle, both of the LA teams, similar issue, right? You're far west. Most of the teams are concentrated in the Eastern and Central time zones. So you're just going to have more flight miles. I think that Seattle and the 49ers always lead the NFL in total flight miles. So that's a challenge. You're on a plane more than other teams. You're changing time zones more than other teams. That being said, the 49ers have also won the division a couple times in a row now. And when that happens, then you play the first place schedule. That's a way or a method for the NFL to try to promote parity in this league. Because if you're playing the first place schedule, it's generally a portion of your games should be against tougher teams. That's going to be hard. I think that if you look at the 49ers schedule specifically, they have a 2-game road trip to cold weather cities that straddles Thanksgiving. They go to Green Bay and then they go to Buffalo, and they're going to fly home for the Thanksgiving holiday in between those 2 games. That's not easy, but the 49ers are going to have to do it. And it's, there's also a lot of teams coming off of buys. I think that I talked about this when the schedule was released. The 49ers are facing the most teams coming off buys in either recent memory or ever. It's a very, very high amount. And one of either the Bills or the Packers will be coming off of a bye, maybe both of them at that point in the season. So San Francisco is going to have to weather a marathon here. They're going to have a deep roster, and I think they do have one, but they have to make sure that roster stays generally healthy. That's currently not happening all too well, but it's training camp, right? You can't freak out about that. So they have to make sure that is taken care of. They have to make sure that their depth is capable when the time comes, because you're not going to be running all 22 starters throughout the course of the season. Just that's impossible in a game like football. And they have to make sure that they weather that storm. So that's the answer to your question about the 49ers and the challenges of the schedule. Thank you to Bill Nicholson. I see, or is it Nicolason? Just want to make sure that I'm pronouncing your name right. Mike asks, was Matt Campbell surprised with Purdy's rise in NFL to top quarterback position? I think that you have to be surprised anytime a young quarterback vaults into MVP finalist status, especially when he's coming off of elbow surgery. I think anybody like Kyle Shanahan, I mean, the 49ers didn't draft him until number 262, so they can't sit there and say that, oh yeah, we saw this coming. We saw an MVP candidate. I mean, you could make the argument he should have won the MVP, but he's, at the very least, he's an MVP finalist in just his second season in the league, leads all efficiency categories, including QBR. Yeah, that's surprising. But I also think that Iowa State knew that this guy was a player. So 2 things can be true at once. Matt Campbell could have known that this guy was a player that had a good chance to see success in the NFL, and he could also be surprised that Brock Purdy completely dominated the NFL so early in his career. But so much of what Purdy did in college at Iowa State prepared him to be good at this NFL level. Here's one thing that I'll share with you guys. When Brock Purdy was first the starter in 2018 and 2019, Iowa State was running a spread-like system. I mean, you saw it on this play from the Oklahoma State game. This is in 2018. They're running a read option on the play, and Brock Purdy is taken off and running into the end zone. It's a very college-like play run by the Iowa State Cyclones. By 2020 and 2021, Iowa State is running more of a pro-style offense. This is pure spread stuff. I'm going to pause it really quickly. You see 4 wideouts, shotgun. They don't have a tight end in on the play. It's just basically the personnel for Iowa State dictated spread offense. And Brock Purdy spreading the defense out with a little pump fake to his left. Is able to take off for the touchdown. Just a filthy pump fake. We're going to have the benefit of getting to see this from the end zone angle one more time. So spread offense his first 2 years. Whoop. Oh, God. High step. Spread offense his first 2 years. And then, you've got the tight end position proliferated Iowa State. They had a guy named Charlie Kolar who plays for the Baltimore Ravens now. So they moved to much more of a pro-style attack later in his career. So Purdy essentially straddled 2 different systems over his time in college. So say, look at Trey Lance. This is a quarterback that started a year at North Dakota State, lower level college football. Sure, it was a pro-style offense, but he only had a year of starting experience, right? Then you had Brock Purdy with 4 years of starting experience across 2 different systems at the D1 level. So his time at Iowa State clearly prepared him for all that the NFL would throw. And what we're seeing right now is reverse flow of ideas from college football into the NFL. It's not just the NFL dictating, okay, this is what we're running and all the colleges are adopting it. Of course, there's a lot of that with the 49ers and Shanahan, but you're also seeing ideas taken from the college game pushed up to the NFL level. That's why I call reverse flow of ideas. So a lot of the read option stuff and a lot of the RPO stuff that we're seeing in the high school, start at the high school level and move up to the college game, has now moved up to the pro game. The point is that the 49ers run like a hybrid of everything, right? I get it. They run outside zone. They run what Shanahan has considered his bread and butter for a long time, but they also changed a lot of what their ratios were offensively this past year. My favorite stat is that in the postseason, they called 109 pass plays and only 77 run plays, a team that prior to that had been run dominated. On the postseason, they were pass dominated. Why? Because, Brock Purdy can obviously throw the ball. Kyle Shanahan feels really comfortable doing that, but the personnel dictated that the 49ers can throw a little bit more. The personnel, and that includes Brock Purdy with his insane 10-yard burst, his elite ability to move. We've talked about it. That's dictated that the 49ers can run him a little bit more. It's also dictated that he can go off schedule a little bit more. So the 49ers have a setup right now with Brock Purdy where what he did in college perfectly translated to how they're integrating him at the NFL level. And so Mike's question was, is Matt Campbell, Iowa State's head coach, surprised by the success that we're currently seeing from Brock Purdy? And he might be surprised to the degree and the quickness with which Brock Purdy has taken over the league. But given the background that I just illustrated at Iowa State, and the fact that Brock Purdy was excellent over those 4 years there behind offensive lines that weren't great, I think that it's not surprising that this guy can still play at the NFL level. So as is the case with any question like that, the answer is complicated. But I think that if Iowa State and their coaching staff were running an NFL draft, they wouldn't have waited until the very final pick to pick Brock Purdy. Probably would have been more of a mid-round guy. Maybe even, you could say, one of the more astute points that I've heard is if Brock Purdy were 6'3", 6'4", 6'5", he's probably a first or second round pick, based on the production. Also, he lost a lot of supporting talent before his senior year at Iowa State. So his best season was the second to last year, and that's the year that they won that Fiesta Bowl. But it's just so important to look at his college career with that kind of nuance, because when you do, I think you really, really do understand why things might have broken the way that they did in the NFL draft. I mean, it's still hard to wrap your head around, but you can kind of see at least the beginnings of pushes in a certain direction. The overarching problem is I think the NFL, and maybe it will get better now that this Brock Purdy experience is behind us and he's an MVP finalist. I think the NFL just isn't looking in the right places when they're looking for traits in a quarterback that will translate to the next level. It shouldn't all be about height and weight and 40 time. Stuff like the 10-yard split is more important to play the quarterback position than the 40-yard dash. Brock Purdy also, I think, strengthened his arm over the time after he was drafted before he took over the 49ers. The offseason following his Iowa State career spent with Tom Gormelli and Will Hewlett. Gormelli is a sports science kind of guy, biomechanics kind of guy, and Will Hewlett's a quarterbacks coach in Jacksonville. The offseason spent with them clearly gave Brock Purdy more velocity on his throws, clearly got him more ready for the NFL level, and that cannot be discounted. Everybody acts like you draft a player and it's static. There's not going to be any improvement or any regression. It's not the case. You're either getting better or you're getting worse. And Brock Purdy, after getting drafted, physically got better. But so much of what is selling now for the 49ers, the elite movement ability, the short area quickness, the quick processing speed, all of that was already on display with Iowa State. And that's what I wrote about in this article. And that's why you should definitely check it out. Bo Adams says, I said it earlier today, Pooney's not the typical run blocker they like to draft, and is more of a pass protector. It's because they believe in Purdy. I mean, Purdy was epically good even with substandard pass protection last year. That's data that I should probably put up on the screen right now. I think I have it saved here. I have it saved under... No, I've got Brandon Ayuk data saved. I don't have the Brock Purdy data saved. But basically, he's the only quarterback that was above average, like significantly above average efficiency, despite playing behind an offensive line that didn't have a very good pass blocking grade last year. It was tremendously impressive stuff from Brock Purdy. But even then, you still need to get that offensive line better. I think that the playoff distribution says a lot. The 109 passes versus the 77 runs, they erased the deficit against the Lions in just a few minutes. So it wasn't like they were ever hopelessly behind to the point where they only had a pass. They're in every single game in the postseason. These games are tight. And to control game flow or give their best shot at controlling game flow, Kyle Shanahan thought that the best thing to do was pass most of the time. Again, 109 called passes, 77 called runs. That's something that the media, for some reason, doesn't talk about when it comes to Brock Purdy. They've been heavy pass over the most important games, over the last 3 games that we saw. The Green Bay, the Detroit Lions, and then the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl. So when your offense has so many weapons and the quarterback is one of them, of course you got to stabilize that pass protection. They said prior to this, real push to stabilize the pass protection, the 49ers had drafted offensive linemen that they really believed in for the run game. That was like the initial impetus. That was the key. Mike McGlinchey's the biggest example of them all in 2018. Elite run blocker, wasn't a great pass protector. Well, now you look at what the 49ers are bringing in. Dominic Pooney, much better pass protector, I think, on paper. Didn't give up a single sack at Kansas than a run blocker. Does that have something to do with Brock Purdy? Of course it does. Of course they want to fortify that pass protection in front of Purdy because they truly believe in his processing ability, and they truly believe that what he's put on tape over the first season and a half in San Francisco can get even better moving forward if the pass protection is improved. Computer enthusiast says Purdy's legs look muscular. Hope he does not get slow and scrambling and running. It's best to be light and fast. You got to have a little bit of both. You have to be able to stand in there in the pocket and take some hits. You have to have a strong base to be durable. That's one thing the 49ers, really, really need from the quarterback position. Every team needs that from their starting quarterback. So you've got to have that. You've got to have the base to deliver the throws that you want to deliver. That's all important, right? But most of all, and I talked about this with Mark Coberly, who's the director of the training and sports medicine department there at Iowa State. We talked about the explosiveness of Brock Purdy. A lot of that short area quickness, the explosion, comes from the fact that he does have that powerful base. It's a violent, violent movement that Brock Purdy is able to deliver in his first few steps. Now, I think that slows him down past 5 or 10 yards, right? 10-yard split's really good. So definitely past 10 yards, it looks like he gets a trailer hitched onto him compared to how quick he is in the first few yards. But how often as a quarterback are you sprinting 40 yards, especially in a Kyle Shanahan system would drive him crazy if you're just taking the snap and running every time? Like you run second, you play quarterback first. Running is a bonus. So you need to use your movement to get yourself into position to throw against an aggressive pass rush that may or may not be beating your offensive line. And for that, the 10-yard split and the is the best measurement because movement happens in shorter spaces. Right? It doesn't happen in 40-yard elongated spaces. So the skinnier, longer guy that doesn't have the big thighs, he might be faster at the 40-yard dash. But a guy who's got the, as we say, the big quad muscles, they call them baby Bosa legs. That's what they're calling Brock Purdy. That's the guy that may have a little bit more of a burst as Purdy does, but isn't quite as fast in yards 10 through 40. But yards 1 through 10 are a whole heck of a lot more important toward playing the quarterback position than yards 10 through 40. This is a good question about David, do you think that we're going to see more run plays from Brock Purdy? I go back and watch the tape of the NFC Championship game. They call a read option in the second half. I think that we're going to see, I don't want to say every game, but we're going to see a read option or some kind of designed run called for Brock Purdy at a fairly regular interval of the 2024 season to keep defenses honest. Purdy has asked for it, but more than anything, look at Kyle Shanahan's behavior. Kyle Shanahan went out and drafted Trey Lance and then touted his running ability, not because he wanted him to be a running quarterback, but because he wanted the threat of the run and the read option and such plays to play 11-on-10 football. He wanted to keep the defense honest with Trey Lance's legs. Ironically, Brock Purdy is quicker in short area than Trey Lance. We saw that last year. So he can do the same thing that he wanted to, that he traded the farm for Trey Lance. He could do the same thing with Brock Purdy. I mean, you saw this. I get it. This is not against NFL competition, but this is D1 college football, and this is a true freshman splitting defenders. He just knows how to move. He knows how to pump fake. He knows how to move, and he's got the burst. He's able to make space on the football field with his legs. So if you've got a QB that was doing this in college and obviously has started to do a little bit of this kind of stuff now in the NFL, as we saw in the postseason with his legs, especially in the NFC Championship game, when you have this as the 49ers, yes, I think you're going to want to keep defenses honest. No, that doesn't mean that you're going to try to expose Brock Purdy to more hits. You can actually try to find and pick and choose places to attack with Brock Purdy's legs. They're going to minimize his risk of getting hit. Plus, you can always slide. That's an important part of all this. Eric Gomes, all caps. Yep, when they don't expect it, to keep teams honest. That's how it works. Shanahan has, I think, very clearly said that that's been a goal with Brock Purdy. And I think that it should continue to be a goal with Brock Purdy. And not just Brock Purdy. It was a goal back when Trey Lance was going to be the quarterback. I think back in 2017 when Jimmy Garoppolo was moving quicker before the torn ACL. I think we might have seen more of that implemented back then. Unfortunately for the 49ers, the ACL tear happened. Jimmy was obviously a different QB after that versus the 5 games that we saw in 2017. But they Thought they were going to get more mobility with Lance. That experiment didn't last all too long, but then Purdy swooped in, and I think we could get a similar dynamic from him. This is a really good question. Do I see any similarities between coaches Matt Campbell and Kyle Shanahan? Funny thing is, Matt Campbell, he went to Mount Union, the really small school, and then he coached there. He was an assistant there when Pierre Garcon was a star receiver at Mount Union. We chatted about that a bit in his office. And obviously, Pierre Garcon is a Shanahan favorite. Washington, and then they signed into the 49ers to implement the playbook. Anyway, I just thought that link was interesting. Campbell, I really, really like his outlook for the college game. And there's a really, really cool set of pictures that Sean Purdy, Brock's dad, sent me that we were able to use for this article that I'm going to share with you right now, because this is awesome background. Campbell, he's such a culture guy. He built this culture at Iowa State that I think is truly special. I think it's what drew Brock Purdy to the program. I think Kyle Shanahan's a big culture guy too. I think that he and John Lynch have decided in 2017 that they want to build the 49ers program like a college program to build that cohesion in the locker room. But Sean Purdy sent me this. This is from Brock Purdy's recruiting visit as a 17-year-old in 2017. And that's Matt Campbell. They both look really different than they look now, but you could tell that it's both of those guys. So Campbell and Purdy have a really, really strong bond. There's, everybody from Iowa State will tell you there's not a whole lot to do in Ames, Iowa. So the players, they go out over to Matt Campbell's house and they hang out, and there's Pop-A-Shot. They might play some pool. Pickleball, I think, is on top of the list. I mean, it's a big brotherhood. Again, it's not like the football factory vibe. I don't think that Brock Purdy also could have gone to Texas A&M or Alabama. They both offered him scholarships. I don't think people were playing pickleball at Saban's house. I don't think the whole team was going over to Nick Saban's house at the time. So as you get the idea of the culture of the Iowa State program. Small town, super familial culture, and that's what Matt Campbell has built. Now, I'll say this for Kyle Shanahan, and this is from Shanahan and it's from Lynch, and I think it comes from the 49ers vision statement, and I covered the vision statement. They crafted it with Burke Robinson, the Stanford professor. They did it back in 2017, and I think they've done a really good job sticking with it. I've talked about what the locker room is like. I'm obviously in there every day during the regular season. After every game, Trent Williams has a summit at his locker. Nick Bosa will pull up a chair to Williams' locker. Anybody's welcome to come talk football. I've been in other locker rooms, and I feel that, there's a mercenary feel in a lot of NFL locker rooms. I don't think that's the case in the 49ers locker room. It has been a concerted effort for this football team to build a college-like vibe and maintain it even with superstar players in the building. So that all comes back to the type of player that you try to bring in. They obviously want good players. John Lynch will say it doesn't have to be a choir boy. That's his famous quote. He said that multiple times. But it has to be somebody that, is talented in the football on-field sense, but also personable enough to allow the locker room to continue functioning cohesively. And in that way, I think that the 49ers are looking at things in a little bit of a college-like lens, because they feel that they can continue pushing forward with sustainable greatness, and they've been really good for several years. They can continue going forward with sustainable greatness if the guys in the locker room like each other. The dollars and cents and the business aspect of the game, that's always going to be something. That's why I cover the salary cap as deeply as I can. That's why we're talking about Brandon Ayuk. That's why we talk about Trent Williams. That's why we're talking about the money for Brock Purdy. You're never going to be able to disassociate professional football from the professional part of it, from the money part of it. But if you add an extra layer of cohesion to a team, and you could do that through the culture in the building, you can potentially help yourself out on the financial side of things. I guarantee you that the 49ers have a stronger pitch to Brandon Ayuk to take a little bit less money because of the locker room that they've built, right? So you can help yourself in that regard. And then in a league that has tiny, tiny margins, like minuscule margins, the difference between winning and losing in the NFL is often razor thin. Well, having guys that are on the same page, having a team where Nick Bosa is pulling up a chair to Trent Williams' locker after games, that could be the difference between winning and losing. Like that could be that little extra that pushes you over the top. So anyway, Matt Campbell's a huge culture guy at Iowa State. And I do think that Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch have tried to really, really emphasize culture with the 49ers. Michael Otis, I think that you might have hit the nail on the head here. I think the program environments are similar, but Campbell and Shanahan as people are contrasting. Maybe at least in the way that they come off. Matt Campbell was extremely, extremely gracious when I showed up, and I'm not saying that Shanahan isn't. Shanahan, I think, has been really accommodating to the media. I think Mike Shanahan has been has helped me a lot over the years too, giving background and talking about 49ers history. I show up, and the first part of our interview, when I'm talking to Matt Campbell, I'll put him back up on the screen here. The first part of our interview is him asking me questions. He wanted to know about Stanford football. I covered Stanford football with Harbaugh and with David Shaw there. Then he wanted to know about the Niners. He wanted to know about how Brock is doing with the 49ers. And then our interview started. It wasn't like this all too busy Division I head coach that's like, okay, you got 10 minutes and then you got to go. It's probably, I was in there for over an hour and we're just talking, and then we start talking for the story. So I felt, you could say Campbell and Shanahan are contrasting as people, but I think you might have hit the nail on the head. And as far as how maybe they come across on a surface level, Shanahan may be more, okay, X's and O's. I got to go watch the tape. I'm obsessed with football kind of guy. Campbell might be a little bit more personable in that way. But I think that if you look at how the actual actions come across, Shanahan's been very accommodating. Campbell's really accommodating. It's the end of the day, I see very similar results despite the fact that they might be portraying themselves a little bit differently. Their personalities might have a little bit of a different outward appearance, but I don't think it's a coincidence that you've got this parallel structure with Brock Purdy operating within Iowa State and operating within the 49ers with very, very similar results. Yes, the article is up on The Athletic. So those of you who are joining right now, you can see it right here. I'm going to put it up on the screen. I think it's worth a subscription, at least worth a trial. I think you could try it for free for a month. This is the piece. It's in the description. It's up on The Athletic. I linked it in the YouTube description. It's up on my Twitter. You can go see it there as well. I'm going to end this show at 49 minutes. How about that? I think that'd be perfect timing. 49 minutes. This is station 13. That's Brock Purdy's number. There may or may not be a visit coming up to a different fire department station in San Francisco. I'm not going to spill the beans, but I got a cool message today and from a fire station that wants me to come by. And I love supporting the firefighters. So we're going to go to that station and we'll do something fun from there. I mean, sports ends up being all about the community, right? It has to be about the community. And going to the local firehouses, I think, gives you a real pulse on San Francisco. So that explains the hat. Everybody, thanks for watching the article. Yes, it is up on The Athletic. Hope everybody enjoyed the trip through Ames, Iowa. It certainly was a good time for me. I could put this up on the screen one more time for you guys, just going through what I got to see up in Ames. First from the athletic building, Purdy up on the walls. That is Jack Trice Stadium. 30 Brock Purdy wins in an Iowa State uniform, many of them there. There he is on the wall of the football facility. Next, Alan Lazard, who's on the Jets. Week 1's going to be an Iowa State reunion. Brees Hall, Lazard, Will McDonald IV. And Mr. Relevant himself. The hallways of that Iowa State facility. There, the Cyclones, they practice indoors. You know what's amazing is that Brock Purdy came from Arizona and was able to weather 4 winters at Iowa State. And for his service there, that he's got his jersey up. So does Harrison Barnes, who's from Ames, Iowa. There's Alan Lazard, formerly of the Packers, now with the Jets. The Purdy 13 is up on the wall, not far from the Montana 16. Pretty cool, right? Speaking of Montana and Purdy, I've got a nice split screen that I'm going to give you as soon as we're done looking at Iowa State's campus. It's the main bell tower. Brock Purdy did a lot of fishing on the ponds in Ames, Iowa. And that's how I could really end this look. I told you I have a cool Montana Purdy split screen. Check this out right here. You'll notice that Brock Purdy and his Iowa State uniform in the article that you should check out on The Athletic is on one side of me. And you might notice who is on the other side. Everybody have a good night. I think it's burrito time. We'll see you soon.